So good evening, everyone. So thank you for joining our online talk. So we are happy to have a speaker to share the topic with us. So we are happy to have Dr. Tommy Cheung, the program leader of the Bachelor of Aviation Management and from Swinburne University, and then Ms. Judy Choi, the guest lecturer. And also we have Daniel, who is the lecturer from Swinburne University. So may I pass the time to Tommy to introduce the program and Swinburne with us. Tommy, please.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this sessions. And my name is Dr. Tommy Cheung from the Swinburne University of Technology, the Department of Aviation. Today, I'm actually going to introduce a little bit about the program as well as Swinburne University. So I'm not sure you have been to Melbourne or not, but this is where I'm now, the Swinburne University. And in fact, this year we actually ranked just under top 300 in the world under the QS World University ranking. And also in the other ranking, academic ranking of the World University, we're also under the top 300s. So which make us within the top 1% of the university globally in both rankings. And in terms of the more related to the area of aviations, we are actually in top 200 in transportation science and technology research under the academic ranking of a World University, ARWU. And we are actually improving, given that we have a very strong research in those areas. And in fact, the Department of Aviation has over about 20 years of experience in teaching Bachelor of Aviation Management as well as Bachelor of Piloting. So we actually partner with our flight operations like the CAE Oxford here. We actually teach our students to learn how to fly. And so we also offer pilot and aviation management degree program. So let's talk about aviation industry. If you look at it, is from the surface is actually just the airports, passenger and airline. But underneath that, there's a lot of other things we can learn. For example, how airline are connecting the airports together. What about the customers' journey experience for all the passengers? Behind it, there's a lot of IT systems, and also there's a e-commerce for air cargos, and also for the manufacturers. So they design the more efficient aircraft for the futures, and as well as the air traffic management. So if you look at the aviation management, it's actually connecting the worlds with different industry, not just in aviation, as well as tourism and others, cargo industry, for example, or transport industry. So, and also related to the governments, there are different government policies and the regulators, regulatory body in Hong Kong is Hong Kong CAT. Here we also have CASAs, and as well as other professional organizations and a university at large. So look at the different career opportunities in aviation. There's a lot. So for example, the airline operations and maintenance management, cargo services, airport operations. Of course, there's nowadays we are talking about smart airport. So there's a lot of things that how to make the airport more efficient and also service much better for the customers. And of course, flight dispatch and aerospace technology. And also in the future is unmanned aircraft and other things like hospitality and tourism, aviation finance, whether we should lease or buy an aircraft, and of course, pilots as well to actually fly all the aircraft around the world. So Hong Kong has actually very relevant to Hong Kong. Aviation industry is one of its backbone of the economics to Hong Kong. So I think recently the third runway is about to operate. So I think they will reopen it when the lockdown is finished. And also Hong Kong is actually getting back to #1 in air cargo hub this year. So it's a big aviation hub in Asia. And of course, the government is also promoting the Greater Bay Area. We have a new airline, the Greater Bay Airlines, which will come into operations or already come into operations. And also multimodal transport. It connects to say to other type of transport, say high-speed railways and to China's, and also by ferry to other, say to Macau. So it's a global logistics center to Hong Kong. Also has a big aircraft maintenance operations, and as well as in the airports and upgrading to smart airports. So in terms of the industry demands, recently there's a survey that there's high demands in the next 5 years in aviation logistics. I think this is actually very true for the pandemics, because as we see that there's a lot of people are probably staying at home doing online shoppings. So there's a very high demand. We see that in the last 2 years, this demand has actually accelerated. So in terms of a career prospect, of course, you can work for airline, air flight forwarders, very strong in Hong Kong, airports, air cargo terminals, maintenance, government consultant, and also airport planner. So this is for us, say for Australia, this is a key Australian aviation employer groups. I sort of separated into 6 different circles here: airport, airline, airspace user, government, manufacturer, education, and the sales channel. So underneath, you can see some of those. For examples, in terms of the airport, we have a say airport investment group, which actually own many of the airport around the world, such as the Macquarie airports. And also the airport associations. And in terms of, say, the manufacturer, of course, we have Airbus and Boeing. Say airlines, we have a Jetstar, Qantas. In terms of some regional airline, we have a Qantas Link and Rex. And also a lot of others, say helicopter and cargo operators. In terms of, say, the education, of course, many of the university in Australia also offer Bachelor of Aviation. So we are one of the leading one, and sales channels like global distribution systems and travel agency. So this is actually a figures that I sort of compiled from the data from Australia's. This is an air transport professional job vacancy. So we can see that up until 2019, before the pandemic, it was actually accelerating upwards. And of course, as we know that during the pandemic, everything drops. But now we are back into the recovery phase. So this air transport professional job vacancy will actually start picking up back to the 2019 level, and we can actually see that there's a shortage of, say, pilots in Europe and as well as in US. So and this is actually a good indicator for the aviation industry as a whole, because when we need more pilots, that means that there are more demands for the flight and as well as for cargo. So this is actually a good indicator that how the industry is going into the futures, and now we are in the recovery phase, and it's almost back to 2019 level, and we expect that in the next 1 or 2 years you will go back to full operation or even better. So with the third runway in Hong Kong opening soon, or in operations, then we expect the demand for travel around this region will be even higher. So this is just a snapshot of the program structures. This is a top-up degree to our Bachelor of Aviation Management in Hong Kong with Hong Kong U Space. And basically, students will need to do 8 units. We need to complete these 8 core units, covering from private pilot theories, marketing, aviation regulations, business strategies, project management, flight offer managers, and as well as research projects. So those are the units that students need to undertake to complete the degree, and you cover almost heavy areas in the aviation that I just talk about from marketing to regulation to strategies, as well as in the research project, you can actually study some of the topics that of your interest and go really in depth to those topics. So this is just some of the alumni in Hong Kong and abroad. So I got those pictures from our study tour back before the pandemic in 2019. So, thank you very much. And now I'll pass the time to Judy. I think Judy, unfortunately, she has other urgent things to attend. So we are going to play her recording and come back to the Q&A session after the Judy's talk. Okay, thank you, Winnie.
So Tommy, please stop sharing.
Oh, sure. Okay. Okay.
So thank you so much for everybody for attending. And our topic today is well-being for aviation professionals. As practitioners involved and concerned in the health and well-being of those employed within the aviation industry, and in particular those who play safety critical roles in the operation, say for example on the flight deck as pilots, or the cabin, or the ramp, or engineering, maintenance, or even air traffic control. We would like to register our increasing concern relating to the physical and mental health impact of the ongoing job losses and employment security each part of the sector is facing as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Regardless of a technical nature, the aviation industry is founded on this numerous dedicated professional people like you and I. Safety performance is directly related to the manner in which people from frontline staff and all the way to CEOs perform their various roles. And overall performance relies on individual and collective states of well-being. Today, the scenarios of continued operations, cessations of operations, and re-establishing operations are generating some unusual challenges, as you and I know of, many of which are related to how we all feel about the current crisis situation. So the fundamental personal challenges associated with well-being are not new, obviously, and will remain important. Whatever our position or responsibilities as an individual working parties in the aviation industry, the current context requires all of us to think hard about our own being and that of the others. One critical point is that our mindset will play a key role in determining how COVID-19 pandemic crisis impacts us. If we can see ourselves as having some control on our own lives, rather than being helpless in the effects of the crisis, we have a chance of emerging into post-coronavirus world in better shape. Even in these challenging times, there are plenty of things we can control. So the purpose of this talk actually is to help you improve your personal well-being. Through this process, it should also help those with whom you socialize and work. We are critically dependent on each other, in both a well-being and safety sense. And this framework or this talk describes the idea of well-being and offers some simple tools based on some fundamental psychological concepts that will help each one of us to make decisions and take actions that will maintain or improve our state of well-being. So the starting point of this, for us to begin our seminar officially, is to ask yourself 3 questions every day or every time you feel stressed. So first of all, how am I feeling? Second, how am I coping? And third of all, what can I do for myself and others? Answering these questions honestly opens the door to the toolkit and starts your journey to a more resilient state and improved state of well-being. The toolkit can and should be used on a daily basis or whenever you think you need, but not just in times of crisis. By following the process, you will become more self-reliant and feel more in control of feelings, your emotions, and your moods. This will in turn have a positive effect of those around you. So, first of all, let us talk about the definition of stress and well-being. The World Health Organization, WHO, defines well-being as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. We're all familiar with the idea of mental well-being, as I know you're well aware, but it is only one pillar of our overall well-being and does not exist independently of our physical and social health. So we call this the biopsychosocial model of health. It allows us to think of our health as a 3-legged stool, in which each of the legs represents one of the pillars, namely biological, psychological, and social. The physical, mental, and social aspect of our health are independent, and a holistic approach is needed to look after them. So when we talk about the biological aspects, we think about the sleep, exercise, and diet. Psychological aspects, we think upon the personal reflection, meditation, attitude to life, stress management, and coping techniques. And also on the social side of things, we think upon increased social support in relation to decreased social pressure and also the support network. Lifestyle has a direct and well understood influence on each of the pillars, namely biological, psychological, and social aspect. We know physical health is much affected by diet, physical activity, and sleep. Our behaviors, attitudes, stress management, and coping techniques have a profound impact on mental health. And social health is linked to our support networks, those around us, our family, our friends, and our colleagues. Factors within a single pillar will influence the other pillars too. For example, sleep has an influence and affects across factors in psychological and social pillars. Physical activity has a profound impact on our mental health, and if taken in the company of others, can enhance our social health. That we'll talk about it later in our talk. So the framework we offer can and should be used on a regular basis and not just in times of crisis. So for simplicity, for conversation here, from this point onwards, we can refer to these pillars as body for the biological aspect of things, mind as a psychological aspect of things, and social, that's where we are upon when we're interacting with families and friends. So well-being influences the nature and quality of our relationships with others which we've talked before, families, friends, or even work colleagues and community. And it impacts directly on human performance, on awareness, decision-making processes, and concentration. Finally, our performance as aviation professionals, underpinned by our well-being, impacts directly on safety, which is our paramount focus. So we're going to talk about the wheel of well-being. And the wheel of well-being shows how we think of ourselves, namely our body, mind, and social aspects existing within a connected family, community, and work environments. Our bodies might not always operate as expected, and that we can experience stress, be it physical, emotional, and we can display signs of distress, but then bounce back. That is called resilience. A resilience allows us to adapt to environment, but just like a wing or an engine, it can only sustain stress to a point beyond which our performance progressively deteriorates until eventually we break. In the same way that we improve structural resilience through better engineering, through better well-being, we can improve our own physical and mental resilience. Now we want to talk about a recent study. So a recent study of 1,059 aviation professionals undertaken by researchers at Trinity College Dublin reviewed key lifestyle behaviors and coping strategies that allowed many to remain resilient in the face of significant work-related stress. So because most of the sources of work-related stress are common to all aviation workers, especially shift workers, the lifestyle factors and coping strategies adopted by the most resilient group should offer substantial well-being benefits of all. So these insights form the foundation of our plan. So in the Dublin study, the most significant lifestyle factors found to influence the psychological resilience of aviation professionals were stress, sleep, diet, exercise, activities, and relationship. And out of interest, that is exactly the 7 elements of the wheel of well-being. So in aviation, we work on one of the world's safest and most heavily regulated industries. The current COVID-19 pandemic poses potentially one of the greatest occupational health and safety threats to face our industry in recent times. Throughout our career, we are trained to manage risk, to look for hazards and report them. But how can we manage something that we can't measure or even see? The COVID-19 pandemic hazard is not just work-related. It is everywhere we go. And for many of us, it's unnerving. We have constant reminders of the need for hand hygiene, and rightly so. But we also need mental hygiene to flush our heads of the non-stop worry, rightly so. But we also need a stressless fears of the unknown of COVID-19. The pandemic is not just a biological virus, it is also a psychological contagion. So moving back upon the 3 questions that I asked before our seminar, I asked, how am I feeling? Second, how am I coping? And thirdly, what can I do for myself and others? The first 2 questions might be harder to answer than the last. How am I feeling? How am I coping? That's easy to answer, right? If you're not feeling well or in control, or you think that you're not coping, to be honest, congratulations. You're normal, because we are constantly under stress, especially in the COVID period. These are perfectly normal responses to very challenging circumstances in which we find ourselves. So as we move along to the 7 aspects and 7 elements of the wheel of well-being, we look more deeply in the factors identified earlier and other practical actions and behaviors you can follow so you can actually mitigate threats and stuff you can actually pick yourself up and move along. So in other words, in the wheel of well-being, we are going to talk about stress, we're going to talk about sleep, diet, exercise, activities, and relationship. So we're going to talk about it one by one with a specified network or framework. So first of all, think of the key factors affecting to support, enhance your well-being. It may work for me, it may not be working well for somebody else. The more time and energy you invest in the behaviors associated with each factor, the stronger these enhancements will be. The more you reinforce your overall well-being, the more resilient you will become. But do remember, it works differently for everybody. Action in any area will have a positive influence, but the best results are to be obtained from a holistic approach and by individual. So out of the 7 elements of the wheel of well-being, let's talk about management of stress. So first of all, stress is what happens to our bodies. And when situation demands exceed our perceived ability to cope. Managing yourselves is an acceptable level is an essential element of personal well-being. So first of all, the first question, we're going to follow this framework every time for the 7 elements. But first of all, let's try to have a practical section of actually having read yourself and self-assess what your management of stress will be. So first of all, ask yourself, how are you coping with the current situation in terms of management of stress? Are you thinking that you're coping with the current situation of management of stress rather well? Or you actually rated yourself as managing or coping with the current situation rather fairly or poorly? If you rate your coping as good, then of course you can maintain that level. If you can improve it, that's okay. But yeah, that's good enough. You can just maintain the level and you'll be happy all along. If you rate it as fair or poor, then I can recommend some of the impacts and also for actions that you can mitigate with it. So if you think that you're coping with the current situation rather fairly or poorly in terms of management of stress, you have to recognize the impacts and potential signs of stress. Whoops, sorry. Yep. So of course, for body, mind, and social, we have to recognize the potential signs of stress. You may recognize that you have muscle tension, you have tension headaches, you have clenched jaw, like when you're playing on the computer games or Xboxes or PS3 or 4. Whoops, sorry. There we go. Don't have icon on. So we have a clenched jaw and you have a rapid heartbeat, like as you were actually very tense. And maybe you have mood swings, you are very impatient, you are very frustrated, you are suffering from frustration and decision, or if you suffer from a loss of concentration and anger, you have that spurs of anger that's going on in your body and mind. And the social aspect of things, you feel that you're actually being really bossy, or you are actually reflecting yourself of abrasiveness or curt speech. And that's potential signs of stress. If you or one of the people you're close to notice any of these signs, you might be suffering from unhelpful stress. So if you recognize that you're actually suffering from these signs of stress, what sort of actions can you undertake to mitigate the situation? First of all, you can learn and use controlled breathing techniques when feeling stressed. I found this really useful and is supported by a lot of studies and from a lot of well-respected organizations as well. So for a really quick practical situation, we can try to breathe into your abdomen for 2 seconds through your nose. Hold for 2 seconds. Breathe out from your mouth for 2 seconds. Repeat 3 to 5 times as you feel able. Concentrate on your breath going in and out as you breathe. For those who practice meditation or mindfulness, you may find that really familiar, but at the same time, it is supported, the breathing techniques, it is supported by numerous reputable organizations that it helps and it works because it is essentially human psychology. Breathing actually works for short-term relief, mitigation of stress. So the second action of all, you can maintain good social networks and focus on positive topics here. And also you can choose to engage in a personally relaxing activity that you enjoy on a regular basis. Say, for example, it is enjoyable for me to go on a hiking experience, or for some of the others with jamming and physical environment, we can go for we can go for a physical walk around the industry, around the neighborhood around here. If you're fond of drawing, then of course you can just refer to your favorite form of activity that we're going to talk about later as well. We can also identify typical situations where you notice being stressed and try to see them the other way. So we analyze it appropriately. So what actually stresses you out and how you can get away from it. And also we can challenge unhelpful thoughts by looking for evidence for them. One very particular reason for us to actually challenge and find evidence, it's because our mind is all jumped up when we are all stressed. We are narrow focusing things, or having narrow vision of what things is happening around us. Say, if you think that in the urge of a moment, you think that it's impossible that we can do this thing, or it is essentially so unreasonable that we have to go along that path, try to isolate yourself and try to look at it in a different perspective. And this will help us a lot to actually investigate and analyze the situation. And that we'll talk about it in more details as we go along for the various aspects and elements of the wheel of well-being. So after this, the second of all, we'll talk about anxiety. So first of all, again, following the framework, how do you rate and self-assess? How are you coping with the current situation in terms of anxiety? So first of all, anxiety is a typical response when normal concerns or uncertainty causes us. Say, if you're working, then there's uncertainty of the job, you've got job insecurity, without real evidence to worry excessively about things that might happen. So managing your anxieties at an acceptable level can obviously help support your personal well-being. Again, if you think that you're coping with the current situation with anxiety, very well, then of course maintain it. If you think that you're rather coping the situation rather badly or poorly, then look for the impacts, look for the potential signs of anxiety. So say, for example, with your mind, you feel that you're being forever on edge, you feel that you're very nervous, you're very panicky, you're really irritable, and you have really poor concentration, or constantly you have a touched chest, you've got your stomach churning, you've got the heart racing, you've got trembling experiences, and you've got muscle tension, And socially, you felt withdrawn. You don't want to talk to any people. You're being unaccumulative, and you've been avoiding contacting with others. So of course, once when you actually embrace and recognize these signs, you can do something about it, right? So some of the actions that we can recommend you to take upon will be learn to use controlled breathing techniques when you're feeling anxious, which we've talked about. Again, breathe into your abdomen for 2 seconds through your nose, hold for 2 seconds, breathe out from your mouth for 2 seconds. And then repeat 3 to 5 times as you feel able, and then concentrate on your breath, going in and out as you breathe. If breathing or medication or mindfulness is not the way for you, of course, you can try the other ways. You can learn to use physical distraction techniques. Say, sit somewhere quiet, isolate yourself from other stress, use controlled breathing for several minutes, or you can say the 10 specific muscles groups at about 5 seconds, then relax them for about 5 seconds. And this is supported, of course, by very well established and very well researched organizations. I come from a really physical family. Well, I practiced gymnastics when I was 4 years old, so I adopt this method entirely as well. So this is not just from my experience, it's from my experience as well as from the research method side of things. So you can actually tense your muscles that much, like for like 15, 20 seconds. Once when you're actually getting really tense, trying to, just let it go the same way. This is actually helping in order to tone it down and calm yourself down. So third of all, if you're not into this physical person, you're sort of an analytical person, you like to solve puzzles, and then you can write down your anxieties and try to solve them rationally by seeing them as puzzles. You can write out all your anxieties and what actually you think that there's evidence, what sort of reason and background knowledge about it. What do you think that are the contributing factors that is actually mounting into your level of stress? So they will be very helpful to those who are after data or after needs. So say, for example, write down a short list of some things that make you feel anxious and that you're aware of your avoid. You can also rank them in order of their difficulty and then score them from 1 to 10. Well, you can, of course, you can score them from 1 to 5. But of course, so you can start from 1 to 10 as well, whatever you think is see fit. In terms of the challenge they pose you, you can start with the one you scored lowest. Try to face that situation and deal with it. So you try to repeat it until you're more comfortable with it, and then move on to the next lowest item. You can repeat it until you're more comfortable with it. And remember that signs of anxiety are only true if you give it to them. Of course, if anxiety does not reduce, initially try talking with a partner, a trusted friend. And this we'll talk about, this will be playing a huge part of it because we are social animal, that sort of aspect. And we need to talk to people, and we need to actually put ourselves into others' shoes in order to get a more objective view of things. And then we can mitigate our stress and depression. So afterwards, besides of sleep, of course, where you'll be thinking about how sleep affects you in your daily life. If you're feeling fatigued, not feeling rested and waking, if you're feeling tension of headaches, if you feel that you're craving on snacking, and you recognize that you have a certain level of clumsiness and you are suffering from a low mood situation, poor judgment, or even poor attention and focus. And of course, as for the actions, you can go for a mitigating action of setting regular hours of going bed and waking up, of course. And to ensure to sleeping space is quiet, dark, and in a suitable temperature. Because if you're sleeping into hot, it's not going to help. You're going to reduce your REM, which is your rapid eye movement, and you're going to reduce your time for deep sleep. And this is not essentially good for health. And that will be leading to more stress and anxiety. Then, of course, following the same framework, we're going to talk about our diet. If you rate yourself and you self-assess, if you carry out your diet like pretty well, then of course keep it. If you're doing it badly or poorly, then of course it will be affecting you by giving you poor concentration or a restless mind. It might be impacting you on decision making as well. So what some actions that we can actually take is we can set regular meal times if possible and to eat meals in company of others. We can also consider using meal times as an opportunity for family members and to discuss their experience and current crisis. And also, as we all know of, to limit the intake of processed foods, not to take so much MSGs or additives. And we can also choose unsaturated oils and spreads and eat in small amounts. First of all, do take yourself and do make yourself and show yourself that you're always hydrated, because dehydrated means that you will be more prone to depression. So first of all, drink 6 to 8 cups of glasses of fluid per day. And of consuming foods and drinks high in fat, salt, or sugar. Try to have these less often and in small amounts. And also to restrict alcohol intake, as alcohol, that essentially means this is a form of depressant. So if you're already suffering from depression or anxiety already, alcohol wouldn't help. And I can't stress enough the importance of exercise because it essentially increases your endorphin. So by increasing endorphin, it increases your self-esteem, helping lift the mood and reducing the likelihood of developing or worsening existing anxiety and depression. As you know, it will have a positive impact on your sleep and your diet, as it reduces cravings for high fat and sugary foods. So maintaining an appropriate level of exercise is of utmost importance to you as well. So if you think that you are having negative impacts of poor quality exercises, like reducing attention and focus, or you have a restless mind, or you have the reduced opportunity to meet others, that you are unmotivated, you can set a regular time each day to exercise or find a formal activity you enjoy. Say, what is the most effective for you? I've talked about it. Maybe for hiking, this is what motivates me. If you think that art jamming or drawing is ultimately interesting for you, go for it. Yeah, as long as you can increase your endorphin level, well, this is essentially good for you to mitigate that situation. So for the relationship, we've talked about that we are social animals. So if we are being neglected from the outside situation, if we're not talking to friends, we're not talking about families, we will suffer from poor decision making and judgment. And we have a reduced attention to focus. We have irritability. We suffer from a low mood situation, the mood swings. We have loss of interest. We get impatience, and we occasionally have outbursts. So what we can do to mitigate the situation, well, simply means I'm sure that 90% of the time, you know about it, easier said than done. But essentially, they're the golden rules. So first of all, be kind to yourself and those around you. Decide which relationship in your life is most important to you. We can actually do it in a very analytic manner by listing them in order and remind yourself of them. We can also discuss within ourselves our assessment with ourselves, the other person, or your trusted members, in particular the relationship of highest importance to you. And it is essential that we retain honest in all times. And we develop crucial skills that we are going to talk about is just by active listening. So all in all, if we identify all the 7 elements of the wheel of well-being and we mitigate the threats, or we secure the elements of well-being, that actually we will have a very positive aspect and positive perspective things that we can uphold our well-being and we will be able to pursue. So we talked about active listening. So active listening involves focusing completely on a person, on what they're saying, understanding their point of view, and any specific information and responding thoughtfully. We've talked about at the start of the seminar that you can put yourselves in the other shoes. And what is the importance of getting a different perspective? Because it is a powerful way of creating positive and engaging dialogue between people. So we can take care of verbal skills, non-verbal skills, or by using active listening. You show that you're interested in your other person as well as challenge or issue, or you're ready to help the other person to solve whatever they're concerned about. And do remember, it is important to not interrupt or try to answer the question before you are sure you know what the person is asking. So you should listen carefully to the person, ask for clarification and ensure what they mean, and wait until they have finished talking before they start to respond. And by using and practice these techniques in actually upholding our 7 elements of the wheel of well-being and also practice the active listening, you should be able to have more productive, positive outcomes from your conversation from other people. So the seminar is a small part of skill set of active listening. If you are actually, as we said, we have a very well-supported research from various very well-reputed organizations. So you can go on and research about it. So in hope that you'll be able to have more productive and positive outcomes from your conversations from other people as well as among yourselves. So if you're happy, if you have any questions, then of course you can just give us and I'll try my best to answer your questions. And that's 40 minutes. I hope you enjoy the conversation. I hope you enjoy the little takeaway points and also the 7 key elements and sort of impacts that you can recognize and the other actions you can undertake to mitigate the situation. I hope you enjoy the session and you can actually benefit from it. And thank you very much for your time.
So thanks, Judy, for her sharing. So you have any questions, you may feel free to drop your question in the chat box on YouTube.
I have a question for Tommy. Tommy, what occupations do you think in aviation are going to be particularly important in the next few years as the industry recovers from COVID?
Very good questions. I think it's not just the pilot. Of course, is the the one of the most important sort of occupations. But at the same time, I think a lot of those supporting, like for the operation side, like the airport operation, which we can see that nowadays, during the recovery phase, for example, there's a lot of congestion at the airport where they need to, help those passengers to get onto their flight. And also a lot of flights are being cancelled because of lack of, pilots and others is the cabin crew. So I think all these are more to do with the operation management at the airport, which are of course related to our aviation management program. So I think both the at the forefront is the pilot, and at the back end also need a lot of supporting staff to operate the airports more efficiently, and also help the airlines to run their business. Yep.
So we have one question. How to improve sleeping quality when you're under huge workload? As an aviation teacher and a pilot,
yep. Daniel,
what do you think?
I can say from a pilot's point of view, when you're flying, especially going across time zones and flying during the night, it's very important to have regular sleeping hours where possible. So even if you're in a different time zone, you may stay mentally and physically almost in the time zone from where you've come from. So if I'm flying from Hong Kong, for example, to Los Angeles, I'll try to stay on Hong Kong time zone, even when I'm in Los Angeles, so I can get my regular sleeping patterns. So to improve my sleep quality, I need to have very, very dark. I need to make sure that I don't exercise immediately before I go to bed. So I might exercise, but then wait 1 or 2 hours before I go to bed. Don't drink too much caffeine, and don't eat straight before you want to go to bed either. So all these things are important. And if you have a huge workload, as you do when you're flying as well, you need to be able to switch off and give your mind a break. So for example, maybe to watch television for half an hour before you go to bed, rather than just coming home from work or stopping your work and trying to go to sleep straight away. So all of these things can help to improve your sleep quality.
And then may I ask you one question? As a pilot, when you travel all around the world, have different kind of delicious food, how you control your diet?
A lot of exercise. I try to do a lot of exercise because I always try to sample the food wherever I go, but just small portions. But always try. You should try the food from where you are, but just have small portions, and then try and make sure you do plenty of exercise as well. And of course, as Judy was saying in her talk, not too much sugar, not too much processed food. Make sure you eat plenty of fruit and vegetable as well. But yeah, it's always nice to try the food. It doesn't matter where you go. If you go to a different country or something, you should always try a little bit of the food from that country.
Thank you.
So maybe I can ask Daniel a question. We have done a lot of research in fatigue. Do you think, in your opinions, as a pilot, is fatigue something that is manageable?
Fatigue is, yes, it's manageable. You can't avoid it because, especially when you're doing shift work of any kind, if you're working during the night, you will encounter fatigue and you will be fatigued. But you do need to learn how to manage it, and it's a very personal thing. Everybody is a little bit different. So whether it means that you sleep for extra period of time when you have the opportunity, or you have other ways of releasing tension, releasing stress, and maybe getting some rest in other ways, maybe by reading a book or doing some other activity that you find relaxing. That's the way that you have to manage it. And of course, as we know, fatigue can cause all sorts of problems in aviation, not just as a pilot, but in many different sectors of aviation and other industries as well. Accidents occur often because people are fatigued and they make poor decisions, or they, for example, become less physically capable. So these are things we do have to learn to manage fatigue, and it's very important for safety within aviation that we learn how to manage it for ourselves as well. We learn our own personal way to manage our fatigue.
Any question from our viewer?
I think no more. So if no more question, may we end here? So thank you once again for joining, and thank you, Tommy and Daniel, for sharing, and good day ahead. Hope to see you next seminar. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.